All right, perfect. Welcome everybody to the minor leagues review of the 2024 MAC League. Just to introduce myself, my name is Chris Boyce. I am first year president of Pepperell Baseball, and I have the honor of taking over the MAC League for this year as well. So I'm just trying to take as much stress as possible in one given year. So hopefully everything goes as smooth as possible. So Keith is the person who's been sending the meeting invites out. He was the host. He's been a huge help. I think he managed it last year. And he can take credit for the new MAC League website, which we'll talk about in the meeting. So welcome to the 2024 season. This is a good kickoff. The slide deck will go out after, so you'll see my email address. So if there's issues throughout the year, throughout the seasons, I would recommend you reach out to your league presidents or the MAC League reps first. But if you don't get a response, feel free to email me with any issues that you might run into. I'll be responsible for hopefully making sure all the stuff is resolved. On this opening slide, when you get the slide deck, you'll see there's the link to the macleague.org. I'll just mention or note to everyone I mentioned Keith set it up, but it's very resourceful. It still needs to be updated a bit before the start of the season. But in there you'll find, and we'll go through details. I'll do a quick run through, or Keith will go through a quick run through at the end of this, just to navigate through the MAC League website as we get familiar with it as the way we're going to manage the season this year. So I thought it'd be helpful as a starting point to kind of put the breakdown of the divisions. So maybe for all the coaches here, a good check when you get the slide deck is make sure that you know which team is yours and your team is on here. If for some reason there's something omitted, something missing, please raise your hand immediately, email me directly and so forth. But we will be breaking down the minors into, I think the same as last year, a North and South division. And you can see the breakdown of where the teams are coming from and the teams you'll be playing through the regular season. And then as we move into the playoffs, there'll be the cross division activity as well. The MAC League season overview. So these are the dates, right? Games begin the week of the 22nd, Monday, April 22nd. It will go, there'll be 12 games in total for every team. So it'll be 6 weeks, 2 games per week. I think there may be one team out there that might have 3 in a given week on a Monday through Saturday. But you should be checking for that, making sure your league president should have already checked, but go ahead and double check your schedule as they're hopefully been provided to you or will be provided to you shortly, and check for the 12 games total and so forth. Final day of the regular season is Sunday, June 2nd. So the hope is there's right now no game scheduled on that day, but that last weekend, that Saturday and Sunday, makeup games and so forth need to be squeezed in before that Sunday because playoffs will immediately start the Monday following, so Monday, June 3rd. And those 2 weeks are always a crunch. There's a lot we got to squeeze in for those 2 weeks, and I think there's oftentimes conflicts with school events and things like that. But we need to get the schedule when we get to the playoffs nailed down pretty quickly. So it will end on the 2nd, and then playoffs begin the 3rd, and they go to the 14th. The All-Star games will happen on June 15th. They're scheduled for the 15th. There will be a potential rain makeup date. Locations are TBD. So there's going to be more information coming after the start of the season as to where those games will occur, who's going to host them, and so forth. But right now, we'll stay focused on the regular season and the kickoff of the 2024 season. If anyone has any questions at all, you could put them in chat. I don't know. I don't think we muted anybody, but if you want to unmute and speak up, feel free. And as Keith just said, yeah, games that happen on June 2nd, that Sunday, need to be done by late afternoon so we can build the playoff schedule. All right. So the way I'm going to run through key parts of the rules, let's say parts that we feel are important to highlight in this meeting. For those that are new to coaching this year, this will give you the important stuff. On the MAC League website is the full rules documented, and we'll show you where that is. So this doesn't cover everything that you're supposed to be aware of and you're supposed to know, but on the Wet Mac League website, there's the entire rules handout available to you for reference. So player participation, teams need to field at least 8 players within 15 minutes after the start time or they forfeit. So I know there's a couple teams at the majors level for Pepperell that are rostered with just 9. We're planning for having call-up players available, but we may face a situation where if we have 1 or 2 kids sick, we might be put in this situation where we have less than 8 players at the 15 minutes after the start time where we'll have to forfeit. But that's a critical rule to note. You need to have 8 to play, right? You don't need 9, you need to have 8. Forfeits are entered into the MAC site when the scores are put in. They should be entered as a 6-0 victory for the non-forfeiting team. As I mentioned, the call-up players for minors can be called up from your rookie level programs. If you have rookie teams, 6, 7, 8-year-olds that want to try and be called up, they can be pulled up for games where you might be facing that situation. Call-ups can pitch.
Join the meeting.
Call-ups must be placed at the bottom of the batting order. And they must play the minimum 6 defensive outs. Okay. All players should be given at least 1 infield inning per game. That's recommended really for just kids' development and not just sticking 1 kid in the outfield all the time. So be good for getting everyone in the infield at least 1 inning. And players are not allowed to wear watches, rings, pins, necklaces, jewelries, anything that is potentially a safety for the kids when they play. As you can note, exception is for medical relevant bracelets. All right. Any questions? I guess I'll stop every time. Who's responsibility? So Dave, I saw your question. Both teams who play have the same responsibility of entering the score, right? So whoever gets there first can enter and save the score. I think in the past, we've always asked the winning team to post, but I think it's more important that a score get posted. So out of the 2 teams, whoever gets there first and posts the score, they should do that.
So just a quick note on that one. So
Yep.
Because we have to do pitch counts, both teams have to go on right away and put in their pitch counts. So doesn't matter who puts the score in, but both teams have to go on at the same time to put the pitch counts in.
At the same time?
Well, within 24 hours.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay. We'll talk about pitch counts because that's a functionality, Keith. Unless you fixed it from the last time we talked, it's still something we're working on for the website. Okay. So I'll anticipate a future slide when it comes to pitch counts. We're going to provide detailed instructions after this meeting, before the start of the season, of exactly how to enter pitch counts and how to go forward with that. We're not quite ready to show you exactly how to do that. Part of the learning curve of the new system, I suppose. All right.
Games.
Yep.
Sorry, I have a question for call-ups. For the towns that have multiple teams, can we borrow players from, say, Littleton 1, or it's just call-ups?
Yep, just call-ups. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Games and scorings. No innings can be started 2 hours after the official start time of the game, as determined by the umpire. The umpires will make the call to stop play before time limit due to weather or darkness, so they're the ones that should be making that call. Home team is responsible for paying the umpire before the game and responsible for providing at least 2 game balls. In minors, there's a 4-run max per inning, except for the 6th inning, where it's unlimited runs allowed in the final inning. So in the last bullet point, coaches can agree to designate an inning before the 6th as the final, because there is that aspect of, as you reach the end of the game, time limit or daylight, that you may not be the 6th inning and you need to get that sort of unlimited run inning played to finalize a game. So you may decide, coaches can decide, the 4th or 5th inning can be the final inning, and then they would play by those and treat that accordingly, if that makes sense. After each slide, I'm going to pause for 2 minutes. I'll give you a chance to, or 20 seconds, give you a chance to ask questions, and I'll move on. All right.
I got a quick
Um,
question on the unlimited runs. So,
Yep.
let's just say, top of the sixth inning, team's up by, 6, 7 runs already, and they're scoring 6, 7 more runs. How do we handle that?
So you gotta finish the inning. So that top of the inning needs to finish to its natural end, so 3 outs. And then move to the bottom where the home team should have that chance to try to score runs. Because the point scoring system, as we see the playoffs, it actually matters runs for and runs against. There's an aspect there. So it does come into play. I remember my first year coaching minors, I think it was 4 years ago, I was in a situation where the game was getting way out of hand, right? And it was something like 15 runs, 16 runs, and just nonstop. Where my team was losing. That ended up becoming a discussion with the other coach. Just think, guys, this needs to stop, right? And if you're in a situation like that, just talk with the other coach and figure out how you want to manage it. But really, we want all games to go that unlimited inning to go to its natural conclusion, if possible. Keith, if I say anything that you completely disagree with, speak up. Let me know.
My big thing that I was just gonna put in the notes there is when we do our playoff seeding, the tiebreaker is runs against, not runs for. So unless there's a tie for runs against, that's the only way we go to runs for. So there really is no point to run up a score. It doesn't really help you in the end. So.
Yeah, good point. All right. Mercy rules. If a team is ahead by 10 or more after the 4 innings, so 3.5 if it's the home team that's away, the game is conceded. At that point, the score is final, and that's what should be recorded into as the final game score. But then we want to allow the kids, obviously, to continue. If there's time left in the day, if there's daylight left, we want those games to continue. Where we put a 2-run max per inning. And this is an opportunity for teams to get more players into pitching, more players into catching, right? And get into those positions where, they may not have as much opportunities to get those experiences. So if you are mercied or if you do mercy another team, we do encourage everyone to continue to the natural 6 inning end. But move things around and give kids opportunities where they may not have those opportunities before. And it's a 2-run max per inning, right? So the innings should go a lot faster to the end. Any pitching after the mercy rule, so kids' arms and arm health is still very important. So any pitching, even after we've said you recorded the game, counts as a pitch count. So if you have a kid pitching after the game as you've hit that 10-run mercy rule, any extra pitches they throw, 10, 15, 20 pitches, they go against their pitch count and can impact their ability to pitch in the next game, depending on how many pitches they throw. But it is important to count every pitch that they throw, no matter what the game condition situation is. And the final bullet point we already talked about, both teams responsible to report the game results on the MAC. If anyone has, I don't know if you guys have your chat box open, but Keith is putting some things in the chat to kind of help provide context and more details separate. So keep that open as I'm talking.
I'll try to answer the questions that come up in the chat so that you can keep going that.
Okay, perfect. Games not played or rainouts. Games should only be rescheduled due to weather, not lack of players or coach conflicts. Having put the schedule together, I can tell you field availability, other team conflicts, majors, minors, division conflicts, it's going to be pretty difficult to reschedule a game. So if you don't have the players, I suppose ahead of time, if you want to reach out to the other coach, if you know more than a day in advance to try to reschedule it, coaches are free to try to reschedule if they can, but it's going to be difficult finding fields available and so forth. So try to keep the schedule you have. obviously games really should only be rescheduled due to weather. If in case of a rain out, you got to report the game as postponed, and then we'll follow up, update the date accordingly when it's to actually be played. And then rain out should be scheduled as close to the original date as possible. Okay. Games not played. Home team is responsible for determining whether a field is playable. So in case of rain, let's say rain earlier in the day, light rain, at game time, it's up to the home team to make that determination, right? They have to contact the opposing coach and umpire no earlier than 2 hours prior to the game, if canceled. So it's the home team's responsibility to play or cancel the game, and they need to make that call 2 hours prior to the game. Game's official, 4 innings. After 4 innings, 3.5, if the home team is ahead. Games postponed before the end of first inning will be restarted, right? So if you start the game and you're halfway through the first, and then the skies open up and you have to stop the game and you can't finish it or can't play any further, then that game essentially is unplayed. When it's made up, it starts over at the top of the first. Game postpones after the second inning, but not official will be resumed as of the stoppage of play. So just continue as is when you do keep playing. And if lightning occurs, play is stopped until no further lightning is observed for at least 15 minutes. So I know all the umpires are well informed or responsible for this safety rule. It's part of the Cal Ripken Babe Ruth rules. You cannot play if you've seen the lightning for 15 minutes, and that means if you wait 15 minutes and then immediately lightning again, you got to go another 15 minutes. At some point, if there's enough delays, the umpire and or coaches may decide just to call the game. All right. Pitching. So I just want to check one thing. Okay. Pitching is tracked via pitch counts rather than innings pitched. The guidelines of how rest days are supposed to happen based on the number of pitches thrown. The table here shows all minors and majors. This follows the safe pitching rules set by Cal Ripken and Babe Ruth. You can see this is for the regular season, right? Only, so it's going to be slightly different in the playoffs, which I have a follow-up slide on. So if a player pitches any less than 20 pitches in a day, they don't need a rest. They could pitch the next day. If they're between 21 and 35 in a game, then they need 1 day rest. I think the majority of games for everybody in every division has at least 1 day in between. So just to be aware of that. I think there's maybe only 1 or 2 teams that actually have back-to-back games where the 1 day rest will really come into play. 36 to 50 pitches is 2 days rest, and 51 to 65 is 3 days rest. Anything above 66 is 4 days rest. So there's some examples here. Player throws 40 pitches on Tuesday, can't pitch again until Friday, right? You cannot finish a batter and go into the next day's rest category. So if your pitcher is at 35 pitches in the middle of an at-bat, pull them out, because if they go to 36, they then fall into that 2-day rest category, right? If you reach the other aspect of this, if you reach the max daily limit, 75, if a pitcher were to get to 74, they can finish that last batter. They don't have to get pulled at 75. If they've started an at-bat at pitch number 72 and that batter goes to pitch number 78, that's allowed. We'll allow that to occur. One of the big changes this year is playoffs. Some of you may have been familiar with what it was last year, but we're putting a little bit more restrictive requirements on pitch counts at both minors and majors in the playoffs, which is going to make having to manage your team, your pitching a little bit different. You're going to really have to work on having more players on your team available to pitch when you get to the playoffs, right? In years past, the pitch counts allowed some teams to kind of get through the playoffs with one or two pitchers, just kind of steamroll their way through the playoffs because of the way the pitch counts were set. We're making this now. The MAC League is now making this, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. You're going to want more pitchers on your roster to help you get through these pitch count rules for playoffs. All right. Pitching continued. Pitches can be tracked using a smartphone or a manual pitch counter. If there's a conflict, the coach using a smartphone, so Game Changer, will have their stats take precedent. For those new to coaching, I think Game Changer is quite a useful tool. I use it basically in every game that I'm participating in. Has a lot of features, a lot of functionality, and pitch counting is one important aspect of that. So it is something that if you're not familiar with, spend some time, get familiar with it. As a coach, as an assistant coach, it's sometimes if you're new to coaching, we like to have assistant coaches where their only job is Game Changer, just to track the games. It is a very useful tool and important to have. At pregame meetings with umpire and coaches, we'll disclose ineligible pitchers for their team. So it's really on the coaches. It's somewhat of an honor system, right? Yeah, we'll ask for coaches to record pitch counts after the games, but to start of the next game, I mean, we're all relying on each other to report the right pitches and who's eligible and who's not. So start of every game, you want to check who's eligible for pitching and who's not, and make sure we're all aligned on that before the game begins. Coaches from both teams should track pitches for their own as well as opposing pitchers and reconcile counts between innings. Again, Game Changer, if you're using it, does this for you. If you're using a manual pitch counter, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do both teams at the same time. So pitchers can finish the at-bat if they reach their limit, as I said earlier, and then enter pitch counts on the MAC site within 24 hours after the game. I made that note, instructions to be provided before the start of the season. So we're working on that functionality as fast as we can. And once we have it, I'll put an instruction sheet together and send it out to everyone on this call and everyone that's not on this call, so they know exactly how to record pitch counts after the games. So we won't run through that. I showered last night, remember? All right.
So did I. Right, Dad? You did not shower when
I went ahead and muted everybody. Just if you need to speak, just unmute yourself. All right. New pitchers get six warm-ups. Returning pitchers get 4. If a pitch, okay, this is an important one. If a pitcher hits 4 players in total in the game, they must be removed from pitching for the remainder of the game. Right. I think I've seen that happen one time. Whereas the kid didn't have it and was hitting a lot of kids. So after they hit 4 players, then they have to be pulled. Okay, so that can happen in one inning. It can happen pretty quickly if the kid's wild, but that's a safety thing. Coaches are allowed 1 mound visit per inning. Second visit can only be to remove the pitchers. That's pretty standard baseball rules. So far, any questions? Pretty silent. All right. Batting. So a new rule this year, we covered in the offseason with the MAC League reps and presidents, is on deck batters are allowed behind the third and first base coaches or outside the field of play. The most important part of this rule is coaches will be responsible for understanding and administering where the on deck batters are allowed to warm up. So every field is different. Every field on deck's responsibility is different. So with the home field coach and with the umpire, make sure everyone's in agreement on where that on deck batter is, and make sure your teams are following the rules as they were established at the start of the game. Simply stated. Players must use the USA bat. If you're not familiar, again, if you're first time coaching USA bat, I've seen kids confuse USA for USSA. It's important to make sure you're looking at your bats and you have the USA stamp on it. If kids are new to baseball, make sure they're aware of that. I have seen kids buy the USSA and then use it with unknowingly, only to not really be able to return it, right? Because they've now used it a couple times. So that can be tricky, but something to be aware of. If a batter makes contact with the ball with the foot outside the batter's box, they are out. And any player throwing a bat or helmet with malice will be given a warning for first offense. Second offense will require ejections from the game. I know that one's always tough, right? Because there are some kids that just can't control emotions, but this is important, right? To make sure that there's a little bit of accountability, not just for the kids, but also for the team. You know, when this is happening, throwing equipment is just not acceptable. So I think the warning is important, but a second offense, we really have to follow suit and follow through on that. Set expectations for the league. All right. Base running, no limit on how many base runners may advance on an error. Meaning, if error occurs, every base runner that's on the bases can go forward one base. No contact rule. The slider avoid rules in effect. So it's highlighted in red, and I probably should have said this up front. So for those that have seen these rules last year and previous years, changes to the rules have been highlighted in red. What we tried to do as a MAC League this year is align the verbiage of the slider avoid rule to the Cal Ripken rule book, because there were reported confusions around how the rule was written for the MAC League versus what umpires who are familiar with the Cal Ripken rule book had, and it just caused a little bit too much confusion. So we just tried aligning it closer to the Cal Ripken rule book, where the slide and avoid rule is in effect. Mandatory that a base runner slides or avoids when there's an imminent play at second, third, or home plate. The base runner, at the sole discretion and judgment of the umpire, should be called out for not sliding or avoiding if contact is made. Right. So I had a situation, I was coaching last year where I had a player accidentally run into another player. Should have been called out, wasn't called out. But that's what we're trying to avoid, those safety issues where there's a contact at the base that really shouldn't have happened. Right. So that's going to be at the discretion of the umpire based on the contact. No head first sliding except for returning back to the base, and there's no leading in minors. If there are two outs, a courtesy runner for the catcher should be used so that the catcher can get ready for the next inning. I think at the minors level, especially, getting kids dressed and ready, and so we're not delaying games. This can be a challenge. So any opportunity you have to, if you know who's catching and they're on base, get them off the base path and get them started catches it, especially when there's two outs, right? So we can kind of keep the game moving along. All right. Stealing. So this was new last year. Just make sure reiterate for new coaches and those who did coach last year. The minors base stealing is allowed in the modified format below. Unlimited number of steals is now allowed each inning. Individual players may steal more than one base in an inning, but not more than one per play per run. Right. So that's intended to, in the situation where base steal second, catcher throws down to second base and it's a bad throw and overthrow, they're frozen at the base, right? They can't go any further. But in that case, any other runner on the base would be allowed to move up one base. Catchers are encouraged to try to throw the play out of stealing, right? We really want those catchers just to practice, throwing that ball down to second, throwing that ball down to third, catch the steals, and not have to worry about an overthrow and an error, right? So just throw the ball, have them throw the ball, try to get as close to play as possible. And if it's not close, oh well. It's good for the catchers to get practicing with just trying to hook that thing down to the base and see if they can get the guy out. A player is allowed to steal home. This can happen 2 times per inning per team, right? So and I think feedback, Keith, you can confirm feedback last year was this got the catchers and pitchers a little bit more engaged, and it was a positive change, but it is something catchers need to be aware of.
Yeah, the feedback we got last year, the first week or two, it was just people struggled as they got used to it. But as the season went on, the catcher started getting it, and we got really, really good feedback after that. So once you get your teams to the point where they're starting to do it and the catchers are starting to be familiar with it, it makes the game a lot more fun. So,
Right. And there's also an aspect of this that in the past, when you had at the minors level, when you have a pitcher that's not accurate and throwing lots of balls, then you often get into this walk fest just to try to end the inning. So this kind of allows that to be shortcutted a little bit, right, to get to that 4-run max and not have maybe such a painful of an inning when you're just watching, ball, and kids being walked just to kind of get through the inning. So keeps things a little bit more active and more alive. So, all right. Stealing. Runners can attempt to steal after the ball passes home plate. No limit on the number of steals per inning, already stated. Stealing, I got that, sorry. No delayed steals allowed once runner is stopped forward. Okay, so this is a rule. People are gonna maybe have disagreements, arguments about this rule in general. It happens every year, every level. What does this rule mean? I'll try to explain it the best I can. When a runner is sort of not actually stealing the base, but moving towards the next base, the second they stop their motion, they have to return back to the previous base. I think some of the situation you find is some coaches understand the rule enough to say, hey, they try to get their kids to keep moving slowly, but keep moving towards the next base. So then when the ball is thrown back, they take off. And, it's one of those things where it's hard to manage this one specifically. I think there's going to be situations where coaches are probably going to come to a disagreement. Umpires are going to do their best to manage this accordingly. They all should be familiar with the rule. But essentially, if the runner stops their forward momentum, they need to return back to the previous bag. Keith, I don't know if you have any additional comments. This one's a tricky one.
yeah, it's always been a tricky one. The best thing I can recommend for people is that when the catcher's holding the ball or got the ball, don't go running down and chasing these players. Just stand in the box. If the catcher stands in the box, the play is over. So that is the single quickest way to end this. So just try to do that and just that's the fastest way to end that problem. So.
And if as the season goes on, at the end of the season, if this becomes an issue in any games, raise it up. The MAC League will continue to look at this, and if we can find a better way to write the rule or make things so as we don't get ourselves in the situation, we'll do that for next season. So feedback is always important.
I have a quick question. Can I just a
Yep.
question on stealing a home? I saw on a previous slide that it was mentioned that there can only be 2 stolen bases of home in per inning. Is a pass ball wild pitch, that's a steal?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Right, Keith. So I saw you. Okay, you agree, right? All right. Make sure I'm on the same page here. Yeah. So pass ball would essentially steal.
Okay. Thanks.
Most of the steals come on pass balls.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
All right. Umpires. So I'll first start with saying umpires, I know for us are hard to come by, right? So I think umpires are becoming a challenge to get. So there's a few things to note here. For minors, unpatched umpires ages 12 and up can be used and should be used wherever possible, right? So patched umpires, if umpires as a resource are limited, patched umpires will be prioritized towards the major 60s, major 70s games. But if they're available, they'll be used for the minors games. So 2 umpires should be scheduled for any game where unpatched umpires are playing. So if there are kid umpires umping the game, there should be 2 of them if possible. That doesn't always happen, doesn't always occur. There could be situations where you have just 1 kid umpire umping your game. Coaches need to work with the unpatched umpires to help ensure the game runs smoothly. These kids, obviously, they're probably coming up from just finishing playing within the MAC leagues. They want to help. They want to earn a little extra money, but they also don't need to get yelled at by coaches or parents, right? So that's something that we all need to recognize. No umpire likes to do it, but especially these kids 12 to 15 years old that are just trying to help, they don't need that either. So coaches need to help manage the game and manage make sure it goes smoothly. And reminding spectators that there's little experience here. They're needed to play the game and make sure the game happens, and to keep your comments to yourself, right? It's not fair for the kids to have to deal with spectators that may be getting a little rambunctious.
I'm just going to piggyback on this one really quick. So last year, this was a real problem with behavior of coaches and the fans. So please respect the umpires, whether you agree with them or not. Even if you're not yelling at them, if you turn your back and you're yelling in the woods, but everybody in this stand can hear that you're upset with the rule, that's still pissing the umpire off. Don't do stuff like that. So we all get it. Umpires make mistakes. Don't go after them. Please don't. We lost a bunch more umpires again this year. And then the other part of it is strike zones. Every umpire has a different strike zone, and they will change it based on the pitcher or the game. So yeah, if a ball comes in at eye level, that might be a strike depending on the pitcher and the umpire. So it's not great for kids that play AAU, but this is rec league, not AAU. So whatever the strike zone is, we hope for consistency, but it's going to adjust. So just get used to it.
Yeah, and as Keith said, we've lost some patched umpires because of this unfortunate interactions with fans, with parents, and so forth. So this is important. I think coaches play an important role here to keep their team's parents under control. I've coached enough now to know that it's hard as a coach to keep your emotions under control. You want the kids to win. You want them to not be and not have bad calls go against them, but it's part of the game. It is what it is. And, you just kind of accept and move on. Right. That's the message. Okay. Umpires to be scheduled by the home team and umpires to be paid before the game starts. So the payment fee and your league president should be aware of this, and should make sure everyone's on the same page. So the minors, if 2 junior umpires are used, the cost of the $6 will be split. $30 each. If just one unpatched umpire is going to be used, then he'll be paid $40. Majors, major 60s, and it doesn't matter for this group, but major 60s will be $80 for an umpire, and major 70s will be $9 per umpire. For playoffs, the championship game and the semifinal game will require 2 unpatched umpires at the same rate as the regular season. No unpatched umpires are allowed in the playoffs or in those championship games, right? We want to make sure we have experienced umpires umping those games. Can you dive into how umpires are scheduled? Sure. So, and I'll do the best I can. I think every league president manages it differently. I know Pepperell, Townsend, Groton, we have an umpire coordinator that has a list of umpires that he pulls from to help us schedule the games. So we pay an extra fee to someone to provide that service for us. I'm not sure personally how the other towns may manage that, if they have their own coordinator, they have their own person doing it, or if someone on their board does it. I'm not sure. Of course. And then obviously schedule changes. The home team, if something changes in the schedule, the home team is responsible for making sure the umpire knows that something's changed, right? We want to make sure they know well in advance, and they're not traveling out to a game that doesn't get played. I think as we get to the end, sportsmanship. Okay, this we talked about this. I don't want to read the novel to you, but it's really comes down to sportsmanship, right? No fighting, no arguing, no throwing things. I mean, we want a good environment for the teams, the players, and everybody. But we do expect coaches to play their part and make sure that if parents of their kids, their team's kids are being louder than they should, that they'll address it in game and put a stop to it.
One good thing
The-
I note on this one, the where it says the moment a pitcher starts his windup, all noise must immediately stop. So make sure when you've got kids chanting and screaming and stuff like that, as soon as that other team's pitcher starts his windup, you get them to stop.
Yeah, that's hard too. And trust me, I've coached teams, kids that they love the chanting and they love trying to get in the head of the pitcher. But I think it's especially at this level important to kind of start ingraining that into their head, right? When it's a sportsmanship thing. When the pitcher's pitching, be quiet, let him pitch, right? But anytime before he starts his windup, sure, be as loud as you want, right? I'm not a fan of the chanting, but I'm I guess an old fart now these days. I think when I was a kid, I enjoyed it. But the important thing is if a pitcher starts his windup, it's got to be quiet. And then the last bullet point, umpire issues, any umpire issues. So if there's a problem, bring it up to the MAC League, email me, email your league president, right? So just to make sure that we understand what happened and we can address it accordingly. And then, okay, so let me stop there. I don't know if I missed any questions, or Keith, you might have handled all the questions. Are there any follow-up questions, concerns? No. Okay. Keith, do you have to leave anytime soon?
I'm still good. She hasn't called me yet.
All right. Do you want to introduce everyone to the MAC League, the website?
Sure.
All So
right.
I'll stop share. I'll let you share. And if you leave, I can take over. If you have to leave, I'll take over.
It sounds like they're still driving, so good for a little
Oh.
bit. All right. All right, can everybody see my screen all right?
Yep.
All right, so this here, macleague.org, this is our new website. It's definitely a lot more up to date than the old one. So it's got some pretty slick things. I'm already logged in here, so you can see what this looks like. At the top, you're going to see the current schedule of games. You'll see our news feed. Things that are going to be important for a couple different things here is under teams. This is where all the teams are listed, and under divisions and resources. So I'm going to start with resources. These are where all of our rules are listed. So minors and major rules are here. You'll be able to see all the rules here. Chris, these are all updated now, right?
They are not. They are not, but they'll be updated. So bear with me. I just have way too much going on, but I'll get them updated in the next day or two.
Okay, so these are last year's rules. They'll be updated very soon. So you have different sections here. These are the minors and major rules. You get your playoff rules, and then you've got the in-season rule clarifications. So these are things that are not specifically written in the rule, but they are clarifications that as we send them out, we'll keep adding things on here so that if you want to get better information about certain things, you can get that information. So that's what you're going to find under here. That's probably the most important thing. Under divisions, this is where you're going to see what
Keith, real quick, just to help everyone on the rules side of things, the minors and majors, right? So you'll see the blue highlighted text is typically where you'll see the differences between minors and majors called out, right?
Yeah.
So everything in black is consistent for all levels. Blue is where you'll see differences.
Yeah, we did it a couple of years ago to try to make it so that you can see, it doesn't matter what level you're in, the rules are identical. And then whenever these things are in blue, those are the things that will be those different things. And then as Chris makes changes for this year, you'll see the changes in red. Yeah. All right, so divisions, if you come in here and you pick whichever one you're looking for, you'll see games, you'll see the current standings where everyone's at. You'll be able to switch to the playoffs once we get there. You can come in, you can go to the schedule and get the whole schedule, the master schedule for that whole division is listed there. Scoreboard, you'll be able to see all the different scores for every day, every game, and then a more elaborate version of the standings with all of the different pieces in there. and that's for every one of those. You also see once we get to the playoffs, we'll actually have brackets in here and everything like that, which is pretty slick looking. For everybody here, so these are all the different team pages. I'm going to go to one in particular just because I added myself as a coach there. So here's where you come in, you can see your own team. You will eventually have your rosters uploaded. You will need to do this. This will be required for your pitch counts. We'll send information on how to do that soon. For the most part, the only thing you really gonna come to is games. And this we'll see all of your games. I just added this fake game in here yesterday in this game. So you can see that now that this game's in the past, there's an option right here to hit the score. So if I come in here, hit score, you're gonna see this is right now, you would just put in the score of the two games and hit save score and you're done. This is going to get changed, hopefully very soon, to add the pitch counts in here. We're waiting for Crossbar, the company that makes the website, to actually add that functionality. They've already got it in on some parts of the site. They just need to transfer it over to here. So we're expecting it anytime now. But yeah, so you just put in your score, save it, and you're done. It's as simple as that. This is all mobile web friendly. So you can do all of this on your website. There is an app for Crossbar. You can download that and do it in there as well. So it's pretty easy. There's not really much else I think we really need to go over in here. Yeah, I would just, those are the few things that you're looking for: teams, divisions, and resources. Is your
So
question
if you-
on the website? Go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted, so, if you haven't received the invite, so, with your invite to your team, it's gonna ask you to create an account, right? So you gotta create an account to get in. But then it'll assign you as the head coach, assistant coach, whatever was provided to Keith. If you haven't received that, so I tested it on one of my personal email accounts. It did go to my junk folder, the invite itself. So just be aware of that. If you know you provided the information, you didn't see anything, check your junk folder. But let us know, because it's important that the staff, each of the staff members is identified for each of the teams. So if you're not sure, if you've done it, you can come in here, go to the team you're coaching, go to the staff, and hopefully you see yourself and your assistant coaches there. But if you haven't received anything, let us know, right? Send me an email. Thank you.
And a good way to tell, so if you're a coach on a team, you can come in and click on staff. You should see the staff listed up here, but if you see it look like this, that means an invite was sent to the coach, but they haven't yet accepted it. So you can hit resend and it will force that again. So Josh, I know you're on here, go accept the invite. So that's how you would, and then once you are the head coach, you could actually add other staff members in yourself as well. So as long as you have one head coach, you can add as many other coaches into the process you need.
Yeah, I would say having in the past, we used League Lineup, which is a lot less easy to use, not a lot less user friendly, let's say.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah, Keith has put a lot of information and effort into this. So anything Mac League related questions, you probably can find it here. So familiarize yourself with the website, with the different pages, the different resources. There's a lot here to help you manage your season. So
yeah. Another good piece on here is this section. It's called provide feedback. If you come in here, this will allow you to leave feedback that we can actually go through from the Mac League board. So you can leave feedback on the league, you can leave feedback on a coach, on an umpire, on the rules, anything like you want to give specific feedback. Hey, this rule sucks. It should look, whatever, it needs clarification. Come in here, click on rules, tell us what you think needs to be changed. And then when the next board meeting for the Mac happens, we'll go through all of these one at a time and it'll all be tracked in the system instead of just sending out random emails that are going to get buried in someone's mailbox. So if you've got any feedback on anything to do with the Mac League, this is your place to put it. So best place you can go. Any question else on the website? Anything I can help show or?
I see the games in there. Can you also load in like your practices for your team if you want parents to see the site?
You can. However, it's not really meant for practice management because each individual town, if you put a practice in, if you put it on the MAC League, you're not booking a field in your town. So what you wouldn't want to do is override your town's policy for how you book practices, because you wouldn't want to show up at a field. and
No, yeah, no, like it, just as a place, if somebody wanted to go to a single place, because the crossbar app is by far one of the better ones.
Yeah, you could absolutely put your practices in there. There's nothing that stops you. Just keep in mind that doesn't book a field at your local town.
No, got it, yeah, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, Chris, back to you.
Yeah, no, so like I said, that walks through the important aspects of the rules, but I would go to the MAC League website, go to the rules sections, read through it as you get ready for the upcoming season. If you have any open questions as you go through the entirety of the rule set, you feel free to reach out to me for clarification if needed, right? So send me an email, whatever. But I think we've covered all the key points to the season, to start the season. And I don't have anything else to add or share unless we have more questions and answers.
Well, this is your opportunity. So minors is usually the hardest one. So if you've got questions, it's a great opportunity to ask them.
Thank you, Chris and Keith. You said instructions on entering pitch counts is coming out soon.
Yes.
Okay.
You can hold Keith accountable to that.
I'm not doing it. I'm just coordinating with the vendor. So it was supposed to be done before this meeting, but they put it on the wrong feature on the site. So they got to move it over.
So if for some reason there is a hiccup with having that feature available for the start of the season, we'll provide some instructions on what to do. So hopefully that gets resolved soon, and I'll create a slide deck to send out to everyone so we know exactly how to do it. But we'll pivot if we need to.
Yep.
All right. I'm not seeing or hearing any other questions, so I guess I just say good luck. Happy 2024 season. Hopefully it goes smooth. And if you see any issues, let me know.
Sounds great, everybody. For just as a reference, the majors meetings at 8 o'clock tonight. So
Yep.
I think I saw some majors coaches on here. So just come back at 8 o'clock for the major stuff.
Oh, I see. Got it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks all. Bye.